So if I can, particularly for the purposes of people who've never really meditated before, can I just get a show of hands for everybody who got distracted during that meditation? Can I just put your hands up? So those of you who've never meditated, look around the room. Everybody gets distracted. Just because your mind gets distracted does not mean you can't meditate or that you're bad at meditating. Everybody's mind gets distracted. That's what minds do. And in meditation, one of the things we're doing is we're learning about our mind. It's one of the things. So, if you've never meditated before, I'm sure one of the things you might be thinking is, so what? That's it. You just sit, you breathe, you get distracted, you come back, you get distracted. What's so great about that? So why to meditate? So I like to, this is the Justin theory of meditation. I think there are three sort of categories of reasons that we meditate. The first and most important reason is because you want to feel better. That's why most people come to meditation. They want to feel a bit better. They've heard, like, maybe if it makes you feel more relaxed, or they saw this book, 10% Happier. It's like, yeah, I'd like to be 10% happier, or whatever it is. You sort of think, yeah, I want to feel better. That's a really good reason to want to meditate. And it works. Believe it or not, this really simple, dumb practice of sitting down and breathing and just trying to hold your attention and failing, but then, bringing it back. If you do that, most people tend to feel a bit better. Oh yeah, I feel a bit better. And that's enough to get people to come back and try it again. And that's important. And it works for most people. You do it, especially if you do it regularly. You start doing it a little bit every day. That benefit of feeling better starts to show up in lots of different places in your life. So it's not just when you meditate, but you'll start to notice a little bit, during the day, you'll be a little bit calmer, there'll be a bit more clarity, and you'll feel a bit better. So that's huge. The second reason we meditate is that I think it's a training. We're starting to train our mind a little bit. And not just our mind, but there's this whole aspect of training in meditation. So what we do when we sit, we pause, we try and stop for a second, or for a minute, or 10 minutes, or however long. When we stop, what we're doing is we're noticing that our mind is on this relentless churning, non-stop churning of problems and ideas and thoughts and opinions and beliefs, and it's running us. We're not, as we learn in meditation, you say sit, and it runs, and we follow. And we tend to be at the beck and call of our thoughts, wherever our mind goes, and it's relentless. It's going in all these different directions, non-stop. And when we pause, it's not that we can stop that. As you noticed, the wheels are still turning. But what happens is you're just slowing it down. You're giving less inputs into your thoughts. They're still popping up, but they start to slow down a little bit. And as they start to slow down a little bit, and you keep bringing it back, even if it's just for half a second here and there, and you hold your attention on your breathing, as you slow down, you start to just let this stuff settle. And we start to get a little clarity, and you can start to see what's going on. And we can start to see in each moment when you notice where your mind has gone, and you go, I'm thinking about buying toilet paper, or wherever it is. What you're doing in that exercise is you're starting to train yourself to notice in any given moment, where is my mind? So every time you notice you've got distracted, you've become aware of your own thoughts. You've noticed, I'm thinking. And then you bring it back. And that is an incredibly valuable training. Because at any given point of any day, you can suddenly go, where's my mind? Is it where I want it to be? Is it serving me? Is it helpful? Or am I just making myself crazy right now? And the second thing we do in meditation is, first, we notice when we've got distracted. And the second thing you then put your mind somewhere else. In this case, you put your mind on your breathing. But during the day, this training, you notice your mind has gone in a particular direction. And then you're starting to develop that skill to put it somewhere else, somewhere that's more helpful for you, which might be just focusing on whatever you're focusing on, or it might be, you know, I'm just not going to worry about nuclear war because it's not helpful to me right now, and there's not much I can do about it, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to think about my kids or something else. And we're training ourselves to be able to put our minds where we want it. There's a couple of things about the mind. I mean, the mind is this incredible tool. It's amazing what your mind does. It's amazing. We can appreciate beauty and art and the sunsets, and it keeps us alive. We can have all these relationships with different people. We can have a career. We can learn how to drive a car. We can catch a tennis ball. It's extraordinary what this brain is capable of. Absolutely remarkable. However, it's also a little bit broken. It's wired badly in two main ways. One is it's hardwired for a very specific purpose. It's hardwired to try to make you survive, and it's also hardwired to try to make you reproduce. That's sort of what it's doing. So in terms of survival, the things it's looking out for is food. It's like, ooh, food. Like you're not feeling hungry, but you go past a bakery and you're like, ooh, I'm hungry. Because we're wired that way. We're wired for food. We're also wired for safety. So we're always looking for like what's dangerous and what's safe. And what we've learned, what our human beings have learned over thousands of years, is that if you're focused on the one thing that might hurt you, as opposed to the 999 things in your life that are wonderful, that's what you're going to focus on. You're always going to focus on what's wrong, not what's on right, because that's good for your survival, to be focused on the threat. Now, that was great when we were sort of being attacked by lions and we were living in the wild. It's not quite so helpful in a modern society. And I'll show you sort of a classic example is you buy a new outfit and you really like it. You like your new outfit. And you go out and maybe you go to a party and 9 people say to you, wow, that looks amazing. You're like, yeah, thanks. And one person says to you, huh, I thought you really looked good in that gray thing that you wore the other day. And you're going to go home and all you're going to think about is like, what's wrong with this? Why is the gray thing better? Like, it doesn't matter that the 9 people said you look good. You're just going to focus on that one person who said, and they didn't even say it looked bad. They just said, I thought you looked really good in the gray thing. And you will go crazy worrying about the one thing. Why? Because you're hardwired that way. You're hardwired to watch out for threats. You're also hardwired to look out for opportunities. So we're always dissatisfied because that helps our survival, to be constantly looking for the next thing that's going to help us. So it doesn't matter how much we have. It doesn't matter that we live in this incredible time in our lives and we're one of the richest societies of, in all of history. We all want more. There's this crazy statistic that storage in the United States, like, buying storage where you can put your stuff, is one of the largest industries in America. It's way bigger than all of Hollywood, for example. Now, why? Why do we need storage? Oh, yeah, because we got too much stuff. But what do we keep wanting to buy more stuff. We're crazy. Because all the stuff, we had these garages, which used to be for our cars, but they're not for our cars anymore. They're for all our stuff. And then we have to go and rent more space for more stuff. So we want more stuff. And we're unhappy with what we have. We think we want more. Well, that's because you're hardwired that way. That's how we are wired. We're wired to look out for opportunity, to believe that there's more. We should have more. It's not a failing. It's how you're wired. Part of your wiring. And then there's all that other soft wiring, which happens like your parents and school and culture and friends and experiences. And all of that gets thrown in. So you've got all this programming. You've got your hardwired programming, and then you've got the programming you build up over time since you've been born. And you've got all those little things going on controlling you. And they're not controlling you for your happiness. When you're looking out for opportunity and constantly dissatisfied, what we've learned through, what evolution has taught us, is that if you're constantly dissatisfied and you're constantly looking for more, that's good for your survival. It's good for our survival. It's not good for our happiness. Being constantly dissatisfied is miserable. And in meditation, what we're starting to do, what meditation is really about, is starting to notice your own wiring, to notice what happens in your mind, to notice these thought patterns as they happen, and then to be able to take that step back and say, okay, do I want to think that way? So we're starting to get this insight into the fact that our minds, while amazing for most things, have a few quite destructive flaws in the way we think. And in meditation, we're starting to be able to notice our thinking and then decide if we want to go there. So sometimes it might be good to go down those thoughts, but sometimes it's not. In meditation, we're starting to notice our thoughts. And that's a training. Every time you meditate, you're training yourself to notice, where is my mind? And then to decide, is that where I want it to be? The other thing, which we'll get into sort of a little bit later in one of the sort of week 5, week 6, is that there's an aspect to meditation which is not just about thinking and not just about awareness and training ourselves in this state of consciousness where we're not relentlessly thinking, but it's also about training our heart and training our compassion. So there's a whole aspect of meditation which balances out just this focusing on the mind and starts to work on our heart. And in this series, and I think possibly the most important aspect of this training, is we're really going to look at self-compassion and self-acceptance and giving yourself a little bit of a break and learning how to do that. And there's a training. And in meditation, we learn how to maybe try and encourage a little bit more self-acceptance and self-compassion, self-love. So that's second aspect. First aspect, feeling good. Yeah, that's good. Second aspect, training. Training the mind, training the heart. And then the third aspect of meditation, the third reason we meditate, is that you probably know that meditation has really come to us and is now a secular activity, but it comes to us mostly from religious traditions. And pretty much every religious tradition has some aspect of contemplative practice or meditation. And there are reasons why they did that. And it wasn't just because they wanted to feel better or this training. It is that they have a sense in these traditions that when you get quiet, when you can get yourself into that state where you're not being controlled 100% by your thoughts, if you can start to quieten that a little bit in those little spaces where you're not thinking and you're just holding yourself in awareness, that in that state, there is something interesting. There's something to discover. So there's this whole aspect of discovery in meditation. And part of that is discovering about yourself. That's the obvious part of it. Discovering about your thoughts, your feelings, your reactions, your emotions, your own compassion. So part of it's that type of discovery. And then there's that slightly mystical side of it. Sometimes we call it the deep end of the pool, whereby the religious traditions will say that there's something interesting when you can close this down a little bit. Underneath that, underneath all that thinking, that part of you that is aware that you are thinking. Once you get behind the thoughts themselves and you quieten it down, in the religious traditions they say, ooh, there can be something very, very interesting there. And that's why they did it, was because they want to see what's there. There's something. Now, for some religious traditions, it's about the ultimate nature of the self, that you have this deeper self, deep within you, that you're touching, that's much more powerful and wise and interesting and loving and joyful And that if we can shut this down a little bit, we can find our true self. Some religious traditions have found that this space, this like deep space, is so overwhelming and interesting and fascinating that they talk about it in terms of gods or a god or some aspect of the universe and transcendent reality, and the oneness of everything. Now, I can't guarantee we're going to discover the ultimate truths of the universe in the 12 weeks that we have. But I just throw it out there that there is this third aspect to meditation, which is that there is something that people have pointed to and something that people have found in meditation, which is pretty interesting and powerful. And that's really for you to find out. So you can approach meditation just because you want to feel a bit more relaxed. That's perfectly legit. Or you can decide you're fascinated by this training aspect. You want to get better at understanding your own mind and develop your own compassion. And that's cool too. But I just encourage you to be open that there is this third aspect, this aspect of discovery, that there might be something else interesting there. And all of that is available. So maybe that's why we meditate. But I'd throw out that the only real reason to meditate is to just make you a bit happier, to improve your contentment, satisfaction, your overall life experience. And that in many ways, if meditation is working, you feel better about your life, and that your life is going better and you're happier. And if that's not happening, then one of two things is true. One is meditation may not be for you. And there are people that is definitely true for various reasons. It's a very small percentage, but there are some people meditation is not for. And if you are one of those people and you don't enjoy it, I'd say lucky you. Because that's one less thing that you should be doing that you're not doing. But for most people, not everybody, but most people find this experience, if they do it regularly, they feel better. They start to be happier. They start to have more insight into their own life. They actually change. Their relationships are better. Their career is better. They feel better about themselves. And that's really the ultimate test. So if you're feeling better, keep doing it. And if you're not, stop. Or maybe try a different way of doing it. It might be just you're really doing it wrong. And there are ways to do it wrong. But we'll cover more of that over the 12 weeks, about how not to meditate.